Reverend Jim Jones was one of the most bizarre religious leaders America has ever known. On November 18th, 1978, he ordered his followers to commit suicide. Why did over 900 people follow one man to their doom? How did Jim Jones control so many lives?
I want you to be like I am. I want you to become what I am. I want you to enjoy the fearlessness that I have, the courage that I have, the compassion that I have, the love that I have, the all-encompassing mercy that I am. I want you to be what I am and something greater. And if you don't want to go this route, then go to hell where you want to, but don't bother me.
The Reverend Jim Jones, born 1931, died November 18th, 1978, with 913 of his followers in the jungle settlement of Jonestown, Guyana. How did it happen? What was the basis of Jim Jones' frightening power over his followers? If his story is told again, will it serve as a lesson for now? James Warren Jones came from a poor southern Indiana family. Jimmy was a serious-minded but rebellious boy who became captivated by fundamentalist Christianity. In what was then a stronghold of the Ku Klux Klan, the young Jones preached racial integration and utopian socialism. To finance his first interracial church, he sold live monkeys door to door. In 1965, Jones moved his congregation to Redwood Valley, California. Haunted by visions of nuclear apocalypse, he declared that here at last was a safe place to build his utopian community, the People's Temple.
Level of society, all socioeconomic income strata, from professional down to the ordinary field worker, field labor, mill worker. Really, it's beautiful to see that all these divisions have been broken down, not only race, but any differences of economic position, but just a warm fellowship and acceptance of all people. We started with about 141 people, and from that we've grown to a very thriving congregation of a few thousand. I didn't think you'd be tired.
Not around you.
Jones achieved extraordinary rapport with people, especially with the aged and with blacks.
Thank you for inviting me in.
To those who felt useless and unwanted, he offered respect and love.
I'm about to go.
Jim Jones was a fiery minister who ridiculed the Christian deity as an impotent sky god.
I'm not here to teach you about no sky god or pie in the sky or sweet pie god. I'm here to teach you that what you see is what you get. You don't doubt.
Grace Stone was a top aide to Jim Jones.
Jim Jones wasn't a Christian. He was an atheist, and Jim used to have people bring the Bibles into the church, and he would throw them down, he would stomp on them, he would spit on them, and he would talk about using the pages for toilet paper.
Debbie Layton was a member of the Temple Planning Commission.
Jim Jones was a brilliant man. Clever, deceitful, and evil, but he was very, very clever. And he read all the books on sociology and psychology and other cults and brainwashing, and he knew exactly what to say and what to do to impress and influence other people.
You'll see him walk on this lake like nothing was ever wrong.
Jones was a gifted showman, an expert practitioner of faith healing. According to numerous reports, most of the healings were phony, but they appealed especially to fundamentalist worshipers who had a long tradition of theatrics and high emotion in their religion.
I think that Jones was able to attract a lot of people into the church because he got to these people at a point in their life where they were vulnerable, be it they were in the middle of a divorce, or they were depressed, or they were lonely.
I was a very, very rebellious kid, and Jim used guilt to bring me into the church and keep me there. He said people from affluent backgrounds that are spoiled cannot stay in a group like this, cannot stay in a structured life and give of themselves to other people. And I was determined that I cared about other people, and I was going to stay in people's temple.
Walk with me. Walk
You had an instant family, you had instant friends, you never had to be alone. If you had any problems, you always had someone to go to. You were just never alone. You always had support, and that's very powerful.
Charles Gary was People's Temple attorney for 2 years.
Jim Jones had tremendous charisma. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever met anybody with more charisma. He was very fascinating, very enthusiastic in what he had to say, and very convincing. It's only when you began to read between the lines as you knew him over a period of time that you began to get the feeling that he had a tremendous ego, and that ego was almost destructive.
As Temple membership soared, Jones became increasingly political. He mobilized thousands to help elect the late San Francisco mayor, George Moscone, who rewarded him with the prestigious directorship of the Housing Authority.
Jim Jones was highly respected in San Francisco. He supported Ronald Reagan as governor and Richard Nixon. He was a tremendous champion of free speech, civil rights, civil liberties, anything that was progressive and good.
Along with Jones' increasing power came fear of media persecution. On one occasion, he gave permission to film services in Los Angeles, but suddenly reneged on his promise.
I really don't feel comfortable with our worship being photographed. I really don't. I must go against the entire council. I don't feel good about it. They can photograph me all they choose, because I do not care. I'm fearless. But I don't want the cameras focusing on others. I don't want them. Ask me your questions, and I'll tell you right straight from the shoulder where I stand. You want to get out there? I'll tell you.
What was passing between this man and his congregation? It was perhaps a form of romance, but as time went on, Jones seemed to change. The dark side of his personality came to the fore.
Every single member of your family had to get on the floor and say something negative about you. And that was to break down any ties and unity within a family, so that when you did come to the realization that something was wrong and you wanted to leave, you could not feel the bond to go to a family member and say, listen, something's wrong here, let's get out.